What is up, guys? My name is Lex and welcome back to the vlog. It's a little cloudy today here in Dallas, Texas, but it's 70 degrees in December. It cannot get too much better than that. We're gonna be playing a 2-5 session at Texas Card House today, but before we get in there, I had to share with you guys the poker hand that changed my life. Alright guys, so let's go over this hand. The date is March 16th, 2018, a long time ago. So I was playing poker for about 8 months at this time, been grinding 1-2. At that time, I was working as a personal trainer around Miami. I had clients in downtown Miami and around the area as well. But my real goal was to become a professional poker player. But I had no bankroll. I had about $2,000 saved up. I was playing 1-2 and I decided at Hard Rock that night I was going to take a shot at 2-5 no limit. So obviously a $2,000 bankroll is definitely not enough to play 2-5. I was desperately trying to become a professional poker player, trying to play poker for a living and quit my job. I did have some revenue income coming in with my personal training clients, so I wasn't worried about losing $2,000, but I only had $2,000 as a poker bankroll at the time. If you guys have watched my past videos, you know that I went broke a couple times. I had gone broke 3 times before this, so this was my 4th time trying to become a professional poker player and play for a living. So I went to the casino with $1,300, okay? I said I was gonna buy in for $500 at the 2-5 game. Anytime I got below $500, I would top back on and I would be willing to risk all of that $1,300. So I go there, I sit down, buy in for 500 bucks. I win some hands, I lose some hands, I win some hands, I lose, I lose, I lose, I lose. I keep topping on, keep topping on. I'm in the game now for $1,300. I've been playing for about 5 hours. It's around 12 o'clock. And I'm like, man, this is not going well. So at this time, I'm in the game for $1,300. I have a $500 stack, and unfortunately that withers away down to like $300, and I have to make a decision. Should I just go home and book a massive loss, the biggest loss of my entire life, or should I go to the ATM and pull out my last $500 in that bank account to play poker with? And I decided as a young 25-year-old kid that pulling out my last $500 of my poker bankroll was a good idea. So I go to the ATM, take out $500, put it on the table. I now have about $800 in my stack before we get into a massive pot. There's an early position raised to $20. I look down in middle position at pocket kings. I re-raised to $65 with around $800 in my stack. The cutoff player, who was a random European guy, I had no idea because I never played 2-5, he re-raises me to $200. So puts in a cold 4-bet, goes back over to the early position initial raiser, calls $200 with $800 in my stack with pocket kings. One option, all in, all of my money. I'm in the game for $1,800, my entire bankroll for poker. I'm all in with pocket kings. The cutoff thinks forever, goes over his options, looks over at the early position player, thinks, and goes all in as well. The early position player goes, screw it, I'm already in enough. He shoves all in, so there's $2,400 in the main pot, which is my pot. The early position player shows ace, queen of diamonds. The cutoff player shows pocket aces, so I'm drawing basically to 2 outs with pocket kings. The dealer puts out the flop 4, 5, 7, turn 7, river, king, making a full house. We take down a $2,400 pot, the craziest hand at the time of my life, and I honestly think that if I didn't win this hand, my entire life would be different. It is pretty crazy that a river card could change your life, but I really think it did. Honestly, if I lost that hand, I most likely would have quit poker, but winning that hand, I had a $2,400 stack. I then went on to 4-bet aces, flop top set. I ended up winning $805 in that session, which was my biggest win by far. I had never won that much money in my life. I've never made that much money in my life in a day, so it was a huge turning point for my poker career. And then basically from then on, I continue to play 2-5 and just keep building my bankroll up to now. 3.5 years later, I'm playing poker for a living, I'm traveling, making YouTube videos, so I'm just super grateful. I cannot believe that this is actually what I'm doing for work. I played one of the biggest games I've ever played last week at the lodge. 10, 25, 50, had like a $13,000 stack. It's incredible that just 3.5 years ago I was basically broke. So definitely grateful, definitely appreciate how lucky I've been in some scenarios, and obviously I appreciate the YouTube channel as well because it's helped out a lot. But that is my story of how a single poker hand changed my life. We're gonna get down to the Texas Card House tables. I'll meet you guys there. We are back at Texas Card House in Dallas, buying in for $3,000 at the 2-5 game. This first hand is pretty interesting. When we have 8-7 of diamonds, there's an early position limp for $5. There's a raise to $25. I'm in the hijack, and instead of 3-betting, I decide to call, and the limper calls as well. So we're 3 ways to the flop. 5, 8, 9 rainbow. It checks over to me, and I decide to bet my second pair and gut shot on this board. I'm just trying to take down the pot here. If my opponents have overcards like Broadway cards or possibly ace-high hands, I just want them to fold out their equity and take this one down. However, the under the gun +1 player makes the call. The initial raiser folds. Heads up now to the 4th card, which is another 8, giving us trips. That is what I'm talking about. Running hot in the beginning. My opponent checks over to me, and I'm definitely going to continue to bet now. I put out $120, and now he decides to put in a check raise to $325. After my opponent makes this raise, he has roughly $350 or maybe $400 left in his stack, so I guess I could just rip it all in here, but he's obviously representing a hand like 6-7 for a straight. He's repping some 8s, and some of his 8s might be better than mine. I guess he could be turning some gut shots and flush draws into a bluff, possibly a hand like Jack-10 into a bluff, so I feel like the best option here is just to call in position, which is what I do. Going to the river in a pretty big 2-5 pot, our first hand of the night, which is an offsuit 3. How much?
All right. Tournament ultimate 65.
I'll give you double.
Richard Plosky comes to me for your seat.
I call.
Richard Plosky.
My opponent jams all in on the river, and obviously I'm not feeling too great about the situation. I'm losing to full houses, better 8s and straights, but not going to nit roll this guy with my trip 8s. I make the call. He says he has nothing. He shows King 6 of spades for a gut shot, which is not going to be good. We end up taking down our first pot. My last 10 days of poker have been insane. The swings have been crazy. I lost a ton of money in San Antonio and at Texas Card House on the live stream, but then I won $6,000 playing a 10, 25, 50 game at the lodge, so maybe this hand is the start to a big upswing. A tighter regular player makes it $20. There's a call. I have King Jack of spades in the big blind and make the call. We flop top pair on Jack 4 deuce, no spade. I check it over to the initial raiser, who throws out a pretty big bet of $50. I only have one option here. I feel like just call, which I do. Go into the turn, which is the 8 of diamonds. I check it over to him, and he continues to bet. He makes it $100 this time. It was a little suspicious that he bet $50 into a $60 pot on the flop, and now he's only betting $100. I'm not really sure what he's repping here. Possibly ace jack, queens, kings, aces, maybe a set, but obviously can't fold top pair just yet. I make the call. The river is the 5 of clubs. Total brick. I check it over to him, and he reaches down at a stack like he wants to bet big, but then decides to bet $225. Somewhat of an interesting spot here. I feel like this is most likely just a call. However, there's not many hands that I'm actually beating that he's going to be betting the flop with, betting the turn, and then choosing this sizing on the river. I feel like if he was bluffing with like king, queen, or ace, queen, or ace, king, or something like that, he would choose more of a polarized bet sizing on the river. $225 just feels like a bet that he wants to be called with. So I think for a while of all the hands that I'm losing to and all the hands that I'm beating, 3 streets of betting from this particular player, I would at least expect him to have ace jack, which we lose to. We also lose to aces, kings, queens, pocket deuces, 4s, 8s, ace 3 for a straight. And given this bet sizing, I don't think he's ever doing this as a bluff. We basically only beat jack 10 and queen jack for value, so I make a pretty tight fold. I just had a feeling my king jack was no good. Unfortunately, we will never know. Moving on to the next hand. In this next hand, there is 4 $5 limps. I have queen 9 of clubs on the button and decide to raise to $50, really just trying to take down all of this dead money and maybe get one caller in position. However, this is Texas poker. Nobody likes to fold pre-flop. Everybody calls, so we end up going 5 ways to the flop. 3, 4, 8 all red cards. We completely miss this board. It checks to me. I check this one back. The turn is the king of diamonds, and now there's a player that bets and a player that calls, and I let my hand go. Not much poker to talk about in this next hand, but I will talk about the calluses on my palms that all of you guys love to talk about. I've been doing CrossFit now for about 8 years, which involves a ton of pull-ups, bar muscle-ups, ring muscle-ups, deadlifts, cleans, snatches, and all of those movements put a lot of pressure on your hands. Doing all these movements at high volume on a repetitive basis leads to my hands ripping and then forming calluses. I can't wear gloves because then I can't grip the barbell or bar as well. So now you guys know why my hands are sometimes beat up. Back to the poker. We raise pocket tens and get no action. Moving on to the next hand. There's an early position limp for $5. I raised to $25 with the ladies pocket queens. Get 3 callers, so 4 ways to the flop of ace, 3, 5. Rainbow, I check, and the action checks all the way around. The turn is the 6 of hearts, bringing a flush draw, and now the early position limper leads out for $50. I make the call, and the cutoff makes the call as well. 4 on the river, bringing a 1-liner to any deuce or any 7, making a straight. Early position player checks. I check. I don't think this board can get any worse for my hand, and the cutoff now bets $125. The early position player folds, and I feel like he's never betting a hand that I'm beating, and he's probably not bluffing here, so let go of my pocket queens. Action folds to the button who makes it $20. I have pocket 7s in the big blind. Make the call. Heads up to king 4, 7, 2 clubs, flopping a set. I check, and unfortunately the button decides to check this one back. Going to the turn, which is the jack of clubs. Now bringing 3 clubs on the board. I bet $35 here with my set of 7s, and he pretty quickly makes the call. The river is the deuce of clubs, putting 4 clubs on the board. Just a terrible run out for my hand. I decide to check, and he puts out a bet of $60, and with this price, I have a set. I just think my hand's too strong to fold. I know I'm probably not going to be good here a lot of the time. I make a frustrated call, and he shows queen jack with the queen of clubs. The tilt is creeping up after that last hand. We flopped a set and our opponent went runner flush to beat us. Next up we have pocket queens. There's a raise to 15. I make it 50 and we get a cold call from a very tight conservative player in the cutoff. So I put him on a lot of hands like 10s, jacks, maybe ace king. So when the flop comes out ace, jack, I decide to check. Obviously, if I put him on ace, king, and pocket jacks, this is a terrible board for us. So I check it over to him, and he actually checks us back. So maybe we are ahead. The 3 of diamonds on the turn shouldn't change anything at all, but I decide to just play and flow and check it over to him again. I don't think he's ever going to be calling a bet with like pocket 10s, and he may try to bluff now, given the fact that I checked twice. He decides to bet $75. Even though I do have a bad feeling that he has ace king or pocket jacks, there's just no way I'm folding here, so I'm just going to go into check call mode on the turn, and most likely on the river. We see the deuce of spades. I check, and he does put out a bet, and I pretty quickly call, and he shows us pocket jacks, just like I expected. Well, if I wasn't on tilt with the pocket 7s hand, I am definitely on tilt now. My opponent smacks a 2-outer, which just seems like a trend here in Dallas. We just can never win with our big pocket pairs. Speaking of big pocket pairs, how about them Cowboys? There's a straddle on for $15, a call for $15. I bump it up to $60. We get a small blind call. The straddler calls, and the limper ends up letting his hand go. So we're going 3 ways to the flop of king 8, 3, rainbow, flopping top set on one of the most dry boards there ever was. When I use the term dry board, that means there really isn't many draws at all. It's king 8-3 rainbow. There's no flush draws. There's no straight draws. There's not even a gut shot. So when it checks to me, I decide to get a little tricky with my top set and check this one back. Turn 4 of clubs now brings in a ton of flush and straight draw possibilities, and now the straddler leads out for $85, and now I have to decide whether I want to continue to slow play my top set or put in a raise, and I think on this card against this player, I should be bumping it up here, so I settle on a raise sizing of $280. Best case scenario is that the under the gun player maybe turned a random 2 pair or possibly even a set, and he thinks that I'm trying to bluff him out of this pot, and maybe he puts in a re-raise, but in Dallas, Texas, we definitely don't run that good. We've been losing for basically 7 weeks straight. Unfortunately, he ends up folding and we take down a small pot. With my time here in Dallas, I feel like I've always been on the losing end of some massive coolers, and I haven't really been able to cooler my opponents for big pots. Other than maybe 1 week where I had 2 big winning sessions that I vlogged, I've been basically slowly losing small to medium-sized sessions. Moving on to the next hand, there's a $15 straddle from the same player as last hand. We have pocket 9s on the button. I make it 3x, $45. The player in the big blind with only a little over a $200 stack makes the call, and the straddler makes the call as well. We go 3 ways to an ace, ace 3 to diamond flop. This is a close spot between checking and betting, and this time I decide to check back. The turn is the 5 of diamonds, now bringing 3 diamonds on the board, and the big blind, the short stack, leads right out for $75. I've seen this woman bluff a couple times with total air whenever she senses weakness, so I'm not going to fold my pocket 9s just yet. I make the call. The river is the 4 of hearts, bringing a one-liner straight now. Obviously a flush beats us, an ace beats us, a straight beats us, and she decides to just rip it all in there for about $150, and I'm frustrated. I'm kind of on tilt. I've seen her bluff before. I don't have a diamond in my hand. Maybe she's doing this with like king queen or king jack with a diamond, so I put in kind of a frustrated call here, and of course she shows us a flush. I think I played this hand pretty poorly. I think I should be betting the flop, checking back the turn, and then folding to her bet on the river, but we're not playing our A game today. I actually grab a rack. I'm ready to leave before the dealer deals me in one more time, and we look down at the smallest pocket pair you can ever get, pocket deuces. I make it $25, and only the big blind calls. We end up seeing a board of 6, 9, deuce, 2 spades, flopping bottom set. On this board, it is very wet, which means that there's a ton of straight draws and flush draws out there. So I put out a pot-sized bet of $50, and the big blind decides $50 is good for him to see the turn. He makes the call. The 4th card is the 7 of diamonds. The big blind checks it over to me, and I think this is a great spot to continue to bet big. This card should be helping him with possibly some pair and flush draws now, maybe some gut shot flush draws, pair and gut shots. So I bet $135, really looking to cooler his 2 pairs, get max value from all of his draws, but unfortunately, too much for him. He lets his hand go. I've said this before in previous vlogs that running bad isn't always getting bad beat and coolered. It's also not getting paid off to the max when you finally do make a hand. I flopped a set of kings and won a small pot. I flopped a set of deuces and won an even smaller pot. I'm losing with my big pocket pairs, making bad call downs, and not getting paid off when I actually make a hand. The table breaks after this hand. I look over at the other 2-5 no limit games, and they look pretty bad. A lot of regs and pros. So I actually sit down with $500 at the 1-2 PLO game, which is full of recreational players. Unfortunately, we couldn't really get any playable hands, so after about an hour, I end up racking up my chips, heading to the cage, and cashing out for the night. Alright guys, that is it for tonight's session. It's a beautiful 66 degrees out here in Dallas, Texas in December. You cannot complain about that. However, our poker run, we can complain about. You guys saw it. Just running bad, losing with sets, losing with queens, making bad call downs on the river. I don't know, ended up losing like $401 tonight, so not that big of a loss, but I'm not really happy with the way I played. Made a couple bad call downs where I felt like I was no good, but I felt like I had to call because in the past like week, I made some really bad folds, so now I was folding too much, now I'm calling too much, so I have to find the happy medium in the middle. I have to just focus on every single hand and take my time, try to make the best decision. Only a $401 loss. Unfortunately, the table was not that much action, so I went over to the PLO game, ended up folding for like an hour there, not much happening there, but unfortunately, we're heading to Vegas next week. Tomorrow, I'm playing on a live stream, which is going to be my last Dallas vlog here, probably for a while. But next up, Vegas, LA. It's going to be a lot of fun. West Coast coming up. If you guys enjoyed this video, hit that like, subscribe, comment down below, and until next time, I'll see ya.